That's just been this pattern. And we are in one of those heavy pushback moments.
Yes.
But seeing how things keep going on, like people don't give up,
Yeah.
what ancestors have done and what people's, forefathers and foremothers did. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, yeah, like we will keep going. And there are other things like, seeing what I give the example of like the University of California, Davis School of Medicine and what they were able to do following Proposition 2009. And that shows possibility. Like it
Hmm.
is just incredible possibility and like what happens and I think that story is so interesting because those changes did not happen overnight. And there was a long period where UC Davis was just like School of Medicine was the same as any other school of medicine, right? Like just not very diverse,
Yes.
and they came together and they just said like, we really need to change things, right? And
Welcome to Student Affairs Now, the online learning community for student affairs educators. I'm your host, Mamta Akapati. Student Affairs Now is the premier podcast and learning community for thousands of us who work in, alongside, or adjacent to the field of higher education and student affairs. We release new episodes every week on Wednesdays. Find us at Student Affairs Now, on YouTube, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. This episode is sponsored by Evolve. Evolve offers 4 leadership coaching journeys designed to expand capacity and build capabilities, empowering courageous leadership to transform institutions and reimagine the future of higher education. Stay tuned to the end of the podcast for more information about Evolve. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Mamta Akapati. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm broadcasting to you today from Austin, Texas. Austin is situated on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Humanos, Coahuiltecan, Comanche, Lipan Apache, and Tonkawa peoples. And now to our episode. Friends, I'm really excited about our conversation today. In this episode, it's truly inspiring to welcome somebody that I've deeply admired for a long time, Dr. Julie J. Park, a nationally recognized scholar whose work has helped shape how higher education leaders think about success, access, equity, belonging, and opportunity. Drawing from her book, Race, Class, and Affirmative Action: College Admissions in a New Era, Dr. Park joins us for a timely and thoughtful conversation about the questions that continue to sit at the heart of higher education. Who has access to opportunity? How do race and class influence educational pathways? And what responsibilities do colleges and universities have in creating environments where all students feel seen, valued, and supported? Building on the foundations of her earlier scholarship, Dr. Park brings both deep research expertise and a genuine commitment to understanding the human stories behind the policies and practices that shape our campuses and impact our students' journeys. For educators who care deeply about student success, this conversation reaches far beyond admission policy. It really invites us to consider how institutions cultivate belonging, foster inclusion, and demonstrate care for students whose experiences and opportunities are shaped by broader social and historical forces. At a moment when higher education is navigating significant uncertainty, legal challenges, and shifting expectations, Dr. Park offers a perspective grounded in research, humanity, and most of all, hope. Her intentional approach encourages educators to move beyond simplified narratives and towards a deeper understanding of how opportunity can be created, sustained, and expanded. Together, we're going to explore how her scholarship can teach us about fostering inclusive communities, supporting student success, and remaining steadfast in our commitment to ensuring that every student has the opportunity to learn, grow, contribute, and thrive. Oh my gosh, Dr. Park, I'm so excited. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Student Affairs Now, and welcome again to the podcast.
yeah, thank
Uh,
you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
yeah, I'm having chills. So I'm really excited. This conversation is so important and continues to be important, right? It's not a singular conversation in isolation, and I just really value the way that you have allowed us to participate in a continuity of a complex conversation in our country around higher education. And I mean, you've done that for so long. your research has contributed so significantly along a continuum, around our understanding of college admissions and campus climate. So I would just love to open the conversation with what experiences inspired your research priorities? That could be personal, academic, but what was the thing that lit your fire?
Yeah, so I've been studying college admissions for goodness, over 20 years now. And, it's been a thread through my research since the beginning. And really, I came to grad school because I became interested in the role that social science research played in the University of Michigan affirmative action cases that went through the courts in the early 2000s. And over 20 years later, there was Students for Fair Admissions, right? That, almost 20 years after Grutter, I'm still studying these cases and the fallout. And, you might think the topic gets like kind of old, but for better for worse, it's always in the news, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes for unfortunate reasons, I guess. But I mean, I guess the upside is just that there's always something interesting. There's always something kind of intriguing to unpack and to study. And so, it's been really interesting to study. So in terms of personal experiences, I mean, there are a lot. I mean, I could go back to like I grew up as a child in, immigrant family, but I'd say two that pop into mind for my interest in race conscious admissions from the beginning, I think, was really shaped by my undergraduate experience. I went to undergrad through a explicitly like race conscious scholarship, like it was called the Chancellor's Scholarship for Minority Students. And I still remember, reading that brochure on the college visit from Vanderbilt, which I had never heard of, and I ended up attending, and they had this
Yeah.
scholarship, say minority students. It was very explicit back then in the 90s, right? And it's
Yeah.
had the groups, Africa, I still remember, and seeing Asian American and being like, oh, that's not very common. And so that was really the only thing that made me apply. And once I got there, I should have realized like why they were trying to like basically like buy students of color, like really get students of color to go there, right? Because it was a
Uh-huh.
very historically white, very like Southern, upper SES environment, probably even,
Yeah.
class dynamics, I think, are even more apparent today, I've heard. And so, it was a really challenging environment as an undergrad. And fortunately, I got the language to understand some of it through sociology classes and just understanding like, oh, like this isn't like, on one hand, like there are great things about my educational experience, but I'm also feel like I'm missing out, right? Because this campus climate is so
Yeah.
tense, right? And it's hindering a lot of things. And so that kind of sparked my interest in, yeah, just the pathways that influence how people get to college. And I had other experiences with teaching and other things, different communities, just learning from communities that were just different from how I grew up. So that shaped a lot of it. And then I'd say, another big thread of personal experience, because the book has a chapter devoted to the debate on standardized testing. And in it, I argue that I say, whether you're clear with it or not, we all have a worldview, right? We
Yeah.
have a worldview and we have experiences that influence how we think about issues. And testing, I think, is one of the most, not just like loaded ones, but one where it's like, probably your experiences, are going to shape whether you think how much value you think the test has and what you think it should be used for, et cetera. And so I'm just upfront and I say like I've worked with so many, I do see, there can be value in testing. Like I don't discount it all, but I also see that I've had the privilege of working with so many just really brilliant, talented people over the years of all different backgrounds who say they didn't test well, right? Or they,
Yeah.
that they are like, no, I didn't do well, or the SAT is kind of this like almost source of shame, and I'm like, no, it shouldn't be because
Yeah.
you're amazing. And so, I can't discount those experiences, encounters, as someone who, I myself, like I did fine on the test and I knew a lot of people,
Yeah.
who did fine on the test. But, it did make me think differently. I was like, wow, like what would we be missing if we didn't have these people who, didn't test as well? Or what could I have learned, right, from, being able to experience, college with some of these people, right? And so I think those things have also shaped some of my thoughts on, maybe I should say I'm like test skeptical, right? Test like not totally or test agnostic, right? So not totally opposed, but I'm just, I think I tend to look with a more critical eye,
Mhm.
and a lot of that has been shaped with just the people I've been able to work with over the years.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. I always like to understand kind of that motivation, the roots, academic interest and personal, right? So I really appreciate you sharing that. I know before we started this conversation, I was sharing with you, reading your book from the lens of as a lens of a parent whose
Mhm.
child just went through this journey. All of, like, it was like I was having the conversation from scratch. I mean, it felt different because um I know this might sound cheesy, but I was on like parent admissions Facebook groups, and so I'm also
Hmm.
now seeing conversations and seeing how parents are navigating all the different components that you talk about, tests, factors that are significant in admissions conversations, how students tell their story, all of that. So when I was reading your book, it just felt so much more personal to me and moved me in a probably a very different way than my sole lens as an educator. So I really am grateful to you, and it actually leads me again with all the kind of in the personal kind of social media spaces as I was reading how people interpret higher education or navigating higher education and admissions or any part of the process, all the myths that just seemed prevalent. Right. So
Yeah.
the truths in
Hmm.
quotes that people would enter into these conversations with. And so that actually leads me to my my kind of, as we go into the conversation, my first question for you. What myths about affirmative action you've written about kind of myth busting before, but what myths about affirmative action or merit-based admissions do you wish people understood better?
Yeah, two or so come to mind. One would be the idea that there are assumptions that prior to 2023 that somehow admissions was the term I've heard is race-based, right? And I put that in quote marks.
Yes.
And actually that's the language that's used by the Supreme Court majority in the opinion, which should tell you something about what they thought was going
Yeah.
on at places like Harvard and UNC, right? Race based, right? With that, it's basically this idea that you're getting in because of your race ethnicity. When those of us who work in higher ed or admissions know that it's so much more complex. And what we really have is what we like to say is race conscious admissions, or you could even say like sort of race sensitive or race
Yeah.
aware, right? Where race doesn't guarantee anything, but you're
Hmm.
just allowed to know what the student's race ethnicity is even if they don't talk about it. And you can take that into consideration in
Hmm.
thinking about how that may have shaped their experiences, opportunities, and the potential, yeah, contributions they may have on campus or society or whatnot. And so yeah, I'd say, I quote the Chronicle of Higher Ed has a reporter, Eric Hoover, who's really great. And he was just upfront. He said, race-based admissions is just this made-up term, right? It's just this,
Yeah.
like, but it reflects, once again, a worldview, right? Like an
Right.
idea
Exactly.
of, like when I say worldview, and I have this backdrop of like the planet, right? So this worldview, right? It's very appropriate the world, so it
Yeah.
reflects a certain lens, but I like to push back and just say, hey, it's not formulas. Those were struck down. It's not quotas. It's not ceilings. It's just being able to know what someone's race ethnicity was, right? And you could have, two African American applicants and neither of them like not, they might
Yeah.
not get in, right?
Mhm.
Right. So that's one. And then the other I'd say is to push back around like what it means to have like sort of merit-based admissions, because I feel like
Yes.
sometimes people use that term to describe a narrow conception of merit. So they'll say, "Oh, we need to move back to merit. Let's bring back required testing." And it's just like, no, 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 right? Like,
Yes.
that, yeah, we have like so two people can be talking about merit-based or
Um,
merit-driven admissions, but have totally different things in mind, right? And so I guess I would just urge people, right, to when they're talking about merit to be specific and to recognize that, of course, like merit, it could be reflected in things like grades and test scores and what classes students take and what AP scores they get. But that's not the end, right? That there can be other ways to demonstrate merit, and the tricky job of admissions officers is to really to bring together a class that reflects merit demonstrated in a variety of ways. And there are some forms of, say, admissions I'll say are not merit based, like like donor, right?
Yes,
Donor
yes.
based, right? So I'm like, okay, like yeah, like let's not have that. But on the whole, right, they're a very talented class, but they're not all going to demonstrate talent in one single way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that I feel like it's one of those like vaccination of consciousness. Like I feel like this is a thing that we just have to keep repetitively
Hmm.
saying in our space in our community spaces. And I mean, I don't know how we continue to do. I mean, it seems very singular narrative interpretations for such complex experiences. So I really appreciate you kind of inviting us to think about that. Um, if throughout your book, you warn, I don't know if it's a warning, but you really kind of raise the awareness of our practices, or you warn us against repressive legalism, right? And so and I think about, we've seen this happen kind of over the past couple of years, institutions making specific decisions. I would call them kind of like an either an overreach or an overinterpretation of overcompliance. Um, and also maybe not, you talk a lot about courageous and bold leadership as well. And so kind of in this next reflection, I would love to hear your perspective and wisdom around examples of policies or actions that where colleges can exercise. I don't know if it's courageous and bold and mission aligned. So courageous, bold,
Sure.
and mission aligned decisions, those kinds of decisions or actions they could take, even if they fear a legal challenge.
Yeah, yeah. It is a really difficult environment because, yeah, the Trump administration has completely weaponized the ruling, right, to go after anything and everything. But, the law says that students for admissions is, it's related to admissions, right? Certainly. And, we are beginning to see, I think, unfortunately, some courts kind of rule towards or to support the application of SFFA to areas that are more sort of adjacent to
Yeah.
admissions, like scholarship and financial aid. Although I will say the jury's now not out on those. And you have legal experts who have talked about certain race
Yeah.
conscious scholarships being able to survive. And it's very interesting and it can get really tricky into like the law and like donor intent and all of these things. And so there's some interesting cases out there. But I'd say, the other arena where, we've had claims that SFFA applies to like all of campus life. And
Oh,
I'm like, no, 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 right? And so, we do have parameters that, programs need to be open to everyone, right? For the most part, they need to be able to, yeah, to be accessible. But then at the same time, there's no prohibition on programs that, seek to provide support, right, for students of color that seek to celebrate their experiences for them and anyone who's interested in learning, right, about communities of color and whatnot. And so, we did have just yesterday, I think, the administration issued some what they see as affinity halls, right? They're going after affinity halls, and it's like, don't you have a war like
yeah.
going on? Like this is all like the distraction, and it's just like, oh my goodness.
Mhm.
And it's just their interpretation of the Fair Housing Act and it's just like, no, like as long as these programs are open to everyone, right, which they
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
right,
Yes.
then they should be okay. And so it's just I would like to see institutions continue to stand up for things like, ethnic student associations,
Yeah.
funding for, we saw cases where I think it was like University of Alabama where they like kick certain student organizations out of the student union. They stripped funding for like publications like on like women's
Mhm.
experiences,
Yeah.
the experiences yeah, in some other communities, and that's total overreach, right? And so I hope most universities will stay strong, right? Because I think students see those actions, right? And they say, like, we have a lot about like there's this big conversation about like trust in higher ed, right? And
Hmm.
how there's this collective loss of trust, supposedly. But I'll tell you what will make a lot of people like lose trust, like those types of actions where I think institutions are walking away from communities of color. When institutions walk away from communities of color, that certainly takes away trust in higher
Yeah,
ed, right?
absolutely.
And so I hope that institutions will, yeah, continue to remember their missions, right? And to be able to support programs that are a lot in alignment with their missions, right, of supporting learning environments for all students.
Yeah. Um, I really appreciate that, and you invoke that in the book, pretty clearly. I mean, I think we all need to hear that. What I was also grappling with is, um, it's this decision in interplay with state legislature decisions and mandates as well. And so sometimes
Hmm.
it's the stacking of
Yeah,
the different
yeah.
pieces. I think, I mean, again, we have a duty of care to stay present and create opportunities for all students to have that sense of belonging and connection. So I hear what you're saying, and I think that sometimes even we ourselves kind of narrowly interpret like what can't be done to keep us from thinking about, okay, what's the expansive mindset about what we believe all students should have, opportunity and experience to have, and how are we holding ourselves accountable, to make sure that the breadth of our students, which would obviously include historically underrepresented and undersupported students, have those opportunities for success and with just the breadth of the university experience in general. One of the things that moved me quite a bit when you were, I think this may have been in your opening, you talked about as you were writing this book, you actually felt more hopeful at the end, like throughout your journey, like you cultivated you felt a greater sense of hope along the way. I needed to hear that. And so I really just appreciate kind of, the energy and mindset by which you went through kind of in your writing process. Um, Reflecting on that, what data or evidence gave you the most hope about maintaining diversity, inclusive practices, caring communities after the ban? And what data alarmed you the most?
Yeah, you mean after the like restriction
Yes,
of
after
race
restriction.
conscious
Mhm.
admissions?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, there are a couple things like to see. I mean, it is not good times, right? We're not
Yeah.
having good times right now,
Yeah.
right? But I think, I dedicate some time early in the book just to talking about like, let's remember the historical context of like
Yes.
how far we've come from, what previous generations have had to deal with. And, we had laws that would not allow enslaved people to learn how
Mhm.
to read, right?
Right.
And which is
Exactly.
like unfathomable today, but was reality, right?
Yes.
Reality not too long ago in this country. And so in a way, like just reflecting on that history, like of how terrible certain things have been, and while this country is so imperfect, how we have kind of limped along,
Yes.
sometimes one step back and two step. But it's just kind of like we can't give up now, right? Like we
Yes.
like we
Absolutely.
can't like in that way. It's sort of like I think stirred me to just sort of be like we have to keep going because like people have overcome, so much, like just
Yeah.
such incredible odds. And yes, it is very difficult and discouraging right now, but it's just like I think looking at history kind of the patterns come and you have progress and then there's pushback against the progress, right? That's just been this pattern and we are in one of those heavy pushback moments,
Yes.
but seeing how things keep going on, like people don't give up,
Yeah.
what the ancestors have done and what people's forefathers and foremothers did. I'm like, oh my goodness, like yeah, like we will keep going. And there are other things like, seeing what I give the example of like the University of California, Davis School of Medicine and what they were able to do following Proposition 2009. And that shows possibility. Like it
Hmm.
is just incredible possibility and like what happens and I think that story is so interesting because those changes did not happen overnight. And there was a long period where UC Davis was just like School of Medicine was the same as any other school of medicine, right? Like just not very diverse,
Yes.
and they came together and they just said, like, we really need to change things, right? And they made just incredible progress over the years. But they had to change so many things, right? From
Mhm.
kind of top to bottom. But, those doctors who are coming out of there, they're going to save lives, right? And they're going to reach people that would not be able to be reached otherwise. So that filled me, that really inspired me. And in the book, I talk about alternate defenses
Yes.
for race conscious admissions, which while they are maybe not politically viable now, like it was inspiring to be like, wow. And even after I wrote the book, like I found articles written over 25 years ago when it's interesting, like the conversations people had around prior to the Michigan
Yes.
cases on, or during
Yes.
the Michigan cases on how are we going to defend this? And what won out ultimately was the diversity defense. And I think there are great things with that. But you had voices then who are just like, no, Michigan should own up to its history and it would be most effective. Charles Lawrence, who's a Georgetown law professor, said it would be most effective to combine that historical institutional defense justifying the policy because of institution specific actions taken by the University of Michigan in combination with the entire, like, yes, everyone benefits through diversity, like to
Hmm.
bring those two things together. Like that's been talked about for decades. And so
Yeah.
that just, but even in my own grad program, it was,
Yeah.
and I imagine with yours, it was kind of like, oh, we want, like, those were
Yes.
happy days after the
Mm.
Michigan cases, and everyone felt good. And, the diversity defense did pull through then,
Mhm.
and it pulled through again in Fisher. And,
Yes.
so, but it's just like unfortunately, when something stops working,
Yeah.
even when we appreciate the values and, and believe that it should work, right? We need to start looking to other places. And so I thought the Croson strategy is fascinating.
Mhm.
And, I describe how it even like institutions don't even have to say like, oh, we did this thing that kept out students. Like they can just say like, we passively participated. It's
Yes.
like, talk about throwing you a bone, like passive participation in
Yes.
an industry that, led to a certain amount of exclusion. And it's like,
Mhm.
what's one big industry everyone
Yes.
was involved in, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, I write it, learning about those things. Like it's funny how writing a book makes you just learn about all of
Yes.
this
All the
stuff.
different.
You think you are like, oh, I know a lot of stuff. I should write a book. But then you write the book, you're like, oh, I learned so much more just writing it, right? And so
Mhm.
learning about those things for me, I was like, hey, I mean, yes, these are terrible times, but
Yes.
learning about those things through the process of writing the book did leave me with this combination of whether it's optimism or just feeling like we definitely can't give up now. Like now
Yeah.
is not a good time. Like, yeah, like we just can't. There's no justification.
Hmm. Any things that you think about in terms of cause of, I mean, continued alarm? I mean, one of the pieces that you also open with is I just think about, you know, it's 3 years have gone, right? It's 2026 now. So, I mean, I feel like to write this book and then like all the changes over the past couple of years, um, anything that particularly raises concern for you?
Yeah, there are many things that raise concern for me.
Hmm.
But one big one is just the dwindling numbers over
Yeah.
time of, in particular, for Black
Yes.
student enrollments on elite college campuses, right? It's, we know these campuses are not the end all be all, but they are significant. And there's a
Yes.
reason why people fight tooth and nail, right? Like, or like
Hmm.
clawing pretty
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
to get in, right? And so to see those numbers go down at a number of places and how that, I think this will be in by fall 2027 we'll have four cohorts, right, of turnover. And so it's just going to be at some places you're just going to have a very different type of experience, I think, for historically underrepresented populations. And it's not like it was great even before the ruling, but
Exactly. Yeah.
you take away, say, half of those students or a third of those students, and you're in an even more difficult place. So that concerns me. The trickle down effects, like of what we as researchers call the cascade effect of how um, the ruling or how previous affirmative action restrictions or
Yes.
bans have resulted in eventually kind of Black, brown, low income students kind of filtering down to lower selectivity institutions where they're less
Yes.
likely to be supported. And, we're seeing some upticks of enrollment of Black students in the for-profit sector. And so those concern me, and of course, just the entire weaponization of the ruling by the Trump administration to go after anything and everything. Though that's something we weren't even thinking about, right, in 2023. Like we were all very like sad and discouraged in 2023, but
Yes.
boy, it just took on a whole nother dimension and, to complicate people's lives, or just to make things very, very difficult. But, I hope that, um, you know, we'll make it through somehow. We
Yeah.
will.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't, as you've kind of invoked before, um, especially now, it's our responsibility to stay in it, right? And to stay present. And I just like, really think about what it means to create opportunities and space for belonging, and what does belonging actually mean, if we're doing that in a way that all of our students feel that dignity and sense of connection, particularly in this, always, but particularly in the current climate. um, you talked about so I just think about the downstream impact, right, and effect of the Students for Fair Admission v. Harvard decision on campus life and the student experience in general. You spoke a bit about that, as I hear, obviously when certain demographics of students are all of a sudden, like, not all, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, but there's a significant impact or decrease of specific demographics of students. Obviously, that impacts the experiences of and opportunities of those students, and it also impacts the student experience overall. How do you think we as educators, those of us who are working on programmatic experiences, how can we be responsive to the campus climate needs or to students during this time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think just recognizing that students are going to, right, that students already had challenges and that they're going to face additional challenges in the
Yeah.
climate. And so, thinking of whether it's institutions, and this is hard because we're beginning to have
Yeah.
layoffs, right? Like we've
Yeah.
had staff layoffs. And so, and everyone is kind of doing the belt tightening thing. And it's the situation of people are asked to do more with less, right? And
Yeah.
so, um, but hopefully institutions will step forward to try to support students to stand behind the structures, the infrastructure, and the programs that we've been able to have in order to continue to support them. To I think be there and just I think maybe almost like a collective grieving or just I mean I remember just dropping in so many times, right? When you're kind
Yeah.
of a student leader, a student activist, and you just want someone to talk to, right?
Yeah.
And being able to be there for students and to validate their experience and also to say like, no, you're not losing your mind or
Yeah.
the feeling that you have of that this doesn't feel right. Like that's not off, right? Because I think
Hmm.
that is something like that can take some time sometimes for students to sink in. But once you feel it, you're just like, oh, is there something wrong with me? Because it seems like a lot of
Mm.
people over here are having a good time and a lot of people here are having a
Mm.
good time, but why am I experiencing like this? So I think, and to the extent that support structures that help students understand like the structural conditions that are influencing like what they are experiencing. And it's no coincidence that these are the same types of classes that people are going after in red states because,
Yes.
they don't want people to understand, right, what's happening to them in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully being able to continue the availability and I think pointing students to those resources and just being there for them and then continuing to build, behind the scenes, I think. And, sometimes it might be just behind the scenes fighting to keep whether it's a budget or
Hmm.
space for students or, these different areas. Yeah, and to be able to just continue to be that presence for them, and recognizing like that it's they're going through so much, right? And it's hard. It's hard because they have to wear so many hats sometimes as students too, as do faculty and administrators and everyone. And so yeah, it's a really difficult time, but I think coming together, right? And
Yes.
being able to validate each other's experiences and encourage, I think we get through everything better when we're together, right? And we're united.
Yeah. I really value that, your wisdom there. I think, having worked and served on college campuses, one of the things I think my wish and hope, as we navigate this very tough time, right, recognizing that right, that there are many hurdles. I feel that there's an opportunity for areas that support students to have, I might not say this in the best way, but a values and operational clarity, um, across a breadth of units, so that if a student is going into academic advising, they're experiencing that high level of dignity and care in the same way that when they go to their student activity, right, in the student activities office, to, to have that listening ear, or the counseling center, or, your success coach, but that a student would experience the consistency of that level of care because there's values clarity around, um, creating an environment where students feel a sense of affection and care. And I feel like that I mean, again, while I too grieve, um, focused programs and opportunities, we know that those are important. I think we have an opportunity to really be in a space of values clarification around,
Hmm.
how we really create that space of affection, for students that may or may not, feel that, right? And so how do we kind of focus on that? So I just appreciate you kind of continuing to call us in to stay focused and stay present. That means a lot. Um, as we kind of go through the journey of the book, you, focus on or you have a call for us to reimagine admissions. There's an invitation for us to think about, admissions differently. Again, back to the bold and courageous, phrase, that that stuck with me in the book. If you had a change, a bold change that, selective college or any institution, but there's a focus on selective institutions, a conversation around selective institutions in the book. If you had a bold change that a selective college could make immediately, do you have thoughts on what that might be?
Oh, well, since you give me like the magic wand and it doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily have to be
exactly.
like realistic, right?
Yeah, no.
I mean, I would love to read like preferences for recruited athletes, right? Like athletic recruitment. I would love to see that just totally change radically,
Yes,
right? Whether it's the number of spots, right, for recruited athletes or just period, right?
yes,
Like that, yes, come play on, let us have these teams, right? I know that's
yes.
doesn't reflect
Mhm.
the whatever the athletic industrial complex that it is, but you asked for
Yeah.
ideas. And I mean, in the book I have other ones I think are more realistic, like more like in terms of like push out, like just more kind of push out information, like
Yes.
reducing the friction in the process, where
Yeah.
as I'm sure you experienced with your daughter, there's so much waiting and
Yes.
this and that, and you don't know so just the more clarity that can be offered around like, hey, if you get in, you will not this is what you will pay, I think is
Yes.
helpful. And along that, I mean, sure, getting rid of early decision, like somehow, I mean, I think, um, yeah, these twin concerns of, equity
Yes.
and mental health, like both, like, and the system is, yeah, I'm sure you walk through
Yes.
it watching your daughter and
Yeah.
her peers really, right, go through it, right? It's just not a
No.
great system, like this survival of the fittest. And I say like I have this like theory, they talk about like fire, like people wanting to retire early, right? And I
Yes.
think it's because people are feeling just so crunched
Yes.
early on, right?
Yes.
And that doesn't seem good for society if everyone wants to retire when they're like
Yeah.
before they're 40, right? And
Yeah.
so thinking of kind of the, you know, how we would rethink sort of if it's like, okay, if we want this, like this flourishing, right,
Yeah.
society where people are not like so stressed out, well, then what does this have to look, at different points, right? And even down to childhood, right? And so that would be one, yeah, a big magic wand. I don't know how you would do it, right?
Yeah.
But just a system that is more in align with both our values, but also like just what we want for society, right? Like, and yeah, you have people who are this current administration's like, oh, everyone should have like 4 kids. It's like that is not happening.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
not happening when people are feeling this way. And yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. I join you in that. It's interesting because yeah, there's an interesting cycle because we're rewarding behaviors that then are not necessarily the behaviors that we want to see, right? I mean, so if you want to focus on health and well-being and students telling authentic stories, at the end of the day, there's a whole machine around curating said authentic stories before you, right? That oddly is inauthentic in the way that the admissions process works.
It's
So
like be authentic. Hire a $10,000 consultant to help you be authentic.
yes. Or to figure out what your authentic is going to be, right? And I think and then the kind of the crisis that happens as then our young people are questioning what is authentic and what tells the story of authenticity for somebody reading on the other side, which are, kind of two different things. So yeah, I join you in that for sure. Um, so um, as you think about the future of admissions, what are you watching most closely in the coming years? Are there indicators or policies on the horizon that you think could be pivotal or things that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what I'm watching the most is just the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Like just looking at how the decision is continuing to impact enrollments. Yeah, I mean, I think something we're keeping an eye on is what's going to happen with this ACT survey, right? That was kind of traumatized
Yeah.
a lot of higher ed over the last year, and what the administration is going to do with it, and early indications, right, are not very positive,
Yeah.
although we don't know what's going to happen. So I think, that will probably open up a can of worms on, what different people want admissions to look like, and the pushback of, defending the ability to capture merit in such
Right.
a wide-ranging, holistic fashion, right? And
Yes.
so, yeah, so those are two of the developments. But I'm also interested, I mean, I'm interested in, we were kind of at like peak birth rate, right? And we're not the cliff, right? It's not going to
Yes.
just like, but it
Yes.
is, you were seeing
Just
like
one
bit
thing.
by
Yeah.
bit, and it's kind of, there's the canary in the coal mine. And so
Yeah.
that's like the other thing of, how institutions are going to respond, adjust, consolidate, and whatnot. And so that's something else I'm continuing to watch.
Yeah. Um, as we think about as we close out our conversation, um, at least for me, when I read from a learner lens, right? Like, what are the tools that I can develop? What are the conversations I can have alongside my colleagues to think about programs differently or initiatives differently? And that's really, really meaningful. I'm going to ask a bit of a heart, although you've brought heart into this entire conversation, which I always cherish about you. How do you want people to feel after reading your book? What is your hope and wish for those of us that have, that read your book? How do you want us to feel emerging out of reading the book?
Yeah, I mean, if it had to be one word, it would be hopeful. But if I
Mhm.
could use more than one word, I think this book, I reflect a little, I kind of mentioned in the intro, like it took on a different meaning
Yes.
because I wrote most of the book actually before the start of 2025. So, I mean, and then I went back and I did heavy revisions. But, in that to capture, how the Trump administration was talking about the ruling, applying it,
Yeah.
weaponizing it, the overreach. But that said, I think the book took on sort of this new significance because it kind of documented like what we
Right.
should be doing, even though someone is trying to scare us into not doing these things. And let's not forget the ruling says this, even though we're being constantly told it means something else, right? The gaslighting. And
Yeah.
so in that, I hope that it gives them this feeling of like it allows them to see how things should be, right? And
Right.
whether that's happening is another issue, but to kind of give this like clarity and vision of, oh, like the, all this noise, like it shouldn't be, I mean, number one, it shouldn't be going on. But number two, like amidst all of that, like what's the reality, right? And what
Mm.
are, and even though it's being able to achieve that reality has become a lot more complicated, right? So I hope it gives people some kind of that clarity and vision and hope, but also like the reminder of like this is what should be happening, right? We should have all hands on deck. We should still be working to support opportunity and access to the fullest extent possible because our
Yeah.
job has gotten a lot harder. We can still, students can still talk about race in their applications. Institutions have a lot of leeway to consider those experiences. And really, we should not be touching most of the campus environment if
Yes.
other than to like enhance things,
Right.
right? And to build things up versus like taking them down. And so I hope the book can offer some clarity around like someone is telling you, oh, SFFA means this, and just the pushback to say, like, no,
No.
actually, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, really appreciated that context, and I certainly loved feeling uh, hopeful. I mean, uh, trepidatiously hopeful, if I can say that. I mean, like it's like,
Yeah.
there's that, like it's like, oh, I have this pit in my stomach, and it's the journey that we need to be in together. So, I it was I really, really value I value you kind of putting this out in the space in such a beautifully woven way. I mean, with like I feel like a chronology of research and context to kind of understand, okay, here's where we are. There's a continuum and a context, and this is just how we need to show up at this point, and the continuum, obviously unseen, but will continue. So here's how we need to show up right now. Um, Julie, I'm so grateful for our conversation. I could talk to you
Oh,
for like I soak in your wisdom. I could talk to you for hours and days. I'm so grateful to you for your time and your spirit, your intellect, but particularly your time and spirit today as a guest on Student Affairs Now. Um, I also want to take a moment to again thank our sponsor, Evolve. We really appreciate the support of Evolve. Given the current context of higher education, we need to invest in leaders with the capacity and capabilities to transform their institutions and the future of higher education. The Evolve Institute for Higher Education Leadership and offers four leadership coaching journeys tailored to four different leadership levels. Each is a 3-month journey that includes individual and group coaching, plus a curated curriculum of short asynchronous video modules. We also offer Evolve for leadership teams. If you are ready to evolve your leadership voice, visit evolve-institute.com to learn more. I also want to take a moment to thank and give a shout out and love to Natalie Ambrosi, the producer of the podcast, who does all of the behind the scenes work to make us look good and sound good. And friends, if you're listening today and not already receiving the weekly newsletter, please visit the website at studentaffairsnow.com and scroll to the bottom of the homepage to add your email to the MailChimp list. And while you're there, feel free to check out the archives. Um, I'm Mamta Akapati. It's an honor to be in space with all of you. So much love and gratitude to everyone who's listening. Please honor your spirits and make it a beautiful week. And until next time, thank you all very much. Dr. Park, super grateful again to be in community with you. Also, thank you for sharing resources. You've shared a lot of resources if we want to continue our own learning and growth. So thank you. I really, really appreciate this.
yeah. My pleasure. Thank you so much.